The world is a place of practice for awakening life. We take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. Good morning. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you and to all things for your training, for being here this week, and for staying open to all the possibilities. Deep bows of gratitude to the Buddhas, ancestors, and bodhisattvas. As you know, or you may know, we're scheduled to have a power outage tomorrow, sometime between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. This is daily life at Shasta Abbey. When the time arrives, we'll start generators to make sure water is available. At least we know what day the outage is. It's tomorrow. So we can prepare for today. We can prepare for it today. Isn't all of our lives just like this? We all know since we have been born, we will die. Most of us just do not know when. So we can prepare for our own death now, while joyfully embracing life. After all, they are not separate. Our opportunity to embrace change and practice moment by moment with fluidity. I'm very grateful for our discussion yesterday. Thank you. And I'd like to say there is no way for us to know the impact or the influence we may have or we may experience, or what influence we have on someone or something, whether it be the Lanka, whether it be the Lanka mantra, or a smile, or just being our good self. Buddhism is based on the intelligent unity of compassion and wisdom. The Lanka teachings are directed at bodhisattvas who vowed to dedicate their lives to others. We must never make the mistake of thinking that when the diamond prajna has cut away the last strand of delusion, nothing is left. For the world will still be here. There will still be a need to live and to behave. There will always be a need for compassion. Consider this Chan poem. Before Samadhi, the mountains were mountains and the streams were streams. In Samadhi, the mountains were not mountains and the streams were not streams. After Samadhi, the mountains were mountains and the streams were streams again. The unborn points to the timeless, fundamental reality that transcends birth and death. It is not a thing to be born or created, rather the underlying, unformed dimension from which everything arises and into which everything dissolves. It is considered to be the innate nature of the mind, free from all fabrications and limitations. It is not something separate. It is about recognizing that which is already present within us. Mind only does not deny the existence of things. Rather maintains the way things appear is through the lens of one's own consciousness. All phenomena experienced, world, other beings, are mere representations or creations of mind. The world is not separate and external to minds. It is a product of perceptions, thoughts, and habits. Let me repeat that. Mind only does not deny the existence of things, rather maintains the way things appear is through the lens of one's own consciousness. This sentence is actually an avenue that we are able to apply to our daily lives when we give ourselves permission to do so. We touched on this briefly yesterday in the discussion. Our perceptions are largely shaped by our reality. If we look through the lens of anger, we will see hostility. If we look through the lens of compassion, we will see kindness. We are able to make significant inroads to peace and harmony with this simple shift of attitude before we react or respond. Herein lies the challenges for all of us. Are we motivated to make the effort to pay attention and change our lens? I've had a couple of lenses since I've started working on the talks, and one of the lenses is the lens of curiosity instead of being annoyed, and looking through the lens of tolerance and patience instead of criticism or judgment. And I'm finding it quite helpful to just take a moment and see what my mind is up to and see if I'm wearing the right lens or not. So how do we fine-tune our awareness with fluidity to causes and conditions? I would encourage each of us to explore this, and I'd be interested to hear what benefits it comes up to you in your meditation. The Lanka gives us the Buddhist teaching of emptiness, shunyata, which teaches that all phenomena, including the mind, are empty of inherent, independent existence. This means nothing possesses a fixed self-sufficient essence or a permanent, unchanging nature. Everything is interdependent and exists only in relation to other causes and conditions. The unborn is often equated with Buddha nature or the original mind, the clear, aware, and luminous potential that is present in all things. It is the mind before it is conditioned by thought, emotions, and perceptions. The unborn is the underlying emptiness that allows for things to appear. The unborn refers to the absence of inherent origination. Mind only through the lens of emptiness means all experiences arise from the mind, and the mind itself is also empty of inherent, intrinsic, or innate existence. If I'm understanding this correctly, phenomena are dependently originated, meaning they arise from causes and conditions and lack an inherent self-nature. This implies that they are also unborn in the sense of not having a true independent origination. This means they are not intrinsically born, nor do they intrinsically cease. There's no separation, there's no separate self which attains nirvana or samsara. The unborn is realized when the separate self is let go of. We fear birth and death. We fear the uncertainty, suffering, and pain of birth and death. But this too is unborn. We train and we fear because we might not be able to attain enlightenment. We might not get free of this pain of birth and death. Our fear is unborn. Our training is unborn. Birth and death are unborn, and nirvana is unborn. The Lanka identifies clinging to a view of the self as separate, independently existing entity as the root cause of suffering. Attachment to a perceived ego creates fear of losing what it believes it possesses or needs, leading to aversion and fear. The key to overcoming fear, according to the Lanka, lies in realizing the mind as ultimate reality. Realizing the mind as ultimate reality. We are encouraged to detach from reasoning and attachment. Let go of false discriminations and attachments to the illusory nature of things. You can free yourself from obstacles of passion and the ego. If you feel fearful, seek the inner self-realization of noble wisdom. Keep your meditation practice consistent and cultivate mindfulness to recognize fear. Embrace the truth of emptiness and interdependence. This is not easy to do, to recall if you are frozen in fear or panting a wild panic. I have heard said a healthy amount of insanity can be motivating at times. The Lanka is only a tool to guide us towards self-realization. Understanding emptiness, unbornness, no self-nature, and non-duality of all things is crucial, and cultivation takes time. We need to plant the seed and then care for it. The ultimate truth can only be experienced directly and intuitively within one's deepest consciousness. Meditation, mindfulness, understanding the origin of fear, of our fear, cultivating awareness without judgment, to respond instead of react by creating space in your practice. Recognize fear's impermanence and its roots in attachment. Buddhists can develop equanimity and reduce the power that fear has over them. Acceptance of fear as a natural human experience, and we are not the only ones who experience this, rather than an enemy to be fought. This acceptance helps to reduce aversion to fear. Consistent practice strengthens our ability to observe fear without being overwhelmed. Om to the one who leaps beyond all fear. We train so that we may truly know that it is the unborn nature of all things, and rely upon the unborn in all things. Everything is just as it is. What is missing is that we do not fully realize that it is the unborn. We can realize it. Everything from the beginning was unborn. When we recognize the Buddha's teaching of the non-duality of luminosity, which is appearances, and emptiness, we are able to understand these combined concepts like we would a rainbow. The appearance vivid, yet empty of intrinsic nature. So is the mind, empty without inherent substance. Clinging to dualistic notions like being or not being, or distinction between subject and object, just leads us to suffering. Mind only, emptiness and non-duality, and how they relate to one another, provides the means for us to not take our life so personal. Rather, look at reality of the eternal moment, free from opinions, views, and beliefs. The Buddha said, "I teach emptiness to transcend eternity and annihilation. Samsara is like an illusion or a dream, but karma is relentless. Space and nirvana and the two kinds of cessation, fools create projections, the wise avoid what is or isn't." The two types of cessation within the context of the Lanka are analytical cessation and non-analytical cessation. Analytical cessation is attained through the mind's discriminatory analysis involving the careful examination of mental defilements. Non-analytical cessation is attuned through direct, non-conceptual contemplation of the ultimate nature of reality, transcending mental discrimination. These two types of cessation relate to the larger Buddhist understanding of the Third Noble Truth, the cessation of suffering. When I read the definitions of the two types of cessation, I was immediately stunned, maybe taken back, by the essence of the Lanka that is clearly preserved in the study today through Bodhidharma's outline of the practice, which provides a framework for cultivating wisdom and compassion through our daily life, leading to liberation from suffering. Both provide a vehicle to transform and transcend, finding peace and freedom amidst the challenges of life. Just briefly, the outline of practice by Bodhidharma, he says, many roads lead to the path, but basically there are only two, reason and practice. To enter by reason means to realize the essence through instruction and to believe that all living things have the same true nature, which isn't apparent because it's shrouded by sensation and delusion. Those who turn from delusion back to reality, who meditate on walls, the absence of self and other, the oneness of mortal and sage, and who remain unmoved, even by scriptures, are in complete and unspoken agreement with reason. Without moving, without effort, they enter, we say, by reason. To enter by practice refers to 4 all-inclusive practices: suffering injustice, adapting to conditions, seeking nothing, and practicing the Dharma. So I will copy this outline of practice. It's just a single sheet, which will fill out the 4 all-inclusive practices that Bodhidharma teaches. I think they're wonderful, and bring them to our next discussion. So I'm very grateful once again to Bodhidharma for what he's given us. The Buddha said to Mahamati, the teaching of emptiness, non-arising, non-duality, and the absence of self-existence pervades all the sutras spoken by the Buddhas. Every sutra teaches these truths, but because every sutra responds to the longings of beings, they differ as to how they express these truths, which are not really in the words. Buddha knowledge is not to be found in words. Trust the meaning and do not cling to the words. This is the skillful means of the Buddha which flavors the entire Lanka. The Buddha replied, Mahamati, the Tathagata Garbha of which I speak is not the same as the self mentioned by followers of other paths. Mahamati, when I speak about the Tathagata Garbha, sometimes I call it emptiness, formlessness, or intentionlessness, or realm of reality, Dharma nature, or Dharma body, or nirvana. What is devoid of self-existence, or neither arises or ceases, or original quiescence, or intrinsic nirvana. The Buddha varies his description of the Tathagata Garbha depending on the attachments of his audience. It's my understanding that the Tathagata Garbha is another name for the Alaya Vijnana, there I got it. In the context of the Lanka, it often refers to the 8th of the repository consciousness. Alaya means storehouse, and it is the Alaya Vijnana's function to store up all memory of one's thoughts, afflictions. The function is to store up the memory of one's thoughts, affections, desires, and deeds. The karmic seeds thus stored remain the Alaya Vijnana, perfectly quiescent and neutral. The consciousness is subtle and is considered the basis as well as the investigator of all mental activity and phenomena experienced in the world, the ground of samsara, if you will. The Buddha said, witnessing the transformation of habit energy, of self-existence, of the repository consciousness, the will, and conceptual consciousness, that is what is meant by nirvana. Conceptual consciousness is considered the 6th of the 8th consciousness. It is distinct from the 5 sensory consciousness of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body consciousness, which directly registers sound, smell, taste, and tactile sensations. Instead, the conceptual consciousness is mental consciousness that processes and makes sense of the information received from sensation. It involves cognitive processes like ideation, discrimination, and formation of thoughts and concepts based on sensory input and past experience. The Lanka emphasizes our everyday experience of the world, filled with distinctions, concepts, and sense of subject and object duality, is fundamentally a product of conceptual consciousness. Clinging to conceptualization and believing them to be ultimately real leads to suffering and hinders our practice. If I'm understanding this correctly, that conceptual consciousness, the very thing that creates, which is the faculty through which we perceive things, which we perceive reality, is also constructed there. So I find that pretty tricky. That one I'm going to have to consider. Mind only points to deeper understanding of reality as a unified, interconnected whole, free from divisions. The world is not separate from mind, but a manifestation of it. This perspective removes the boundary line between internal and external. Perceived reality comes from mental activity. There is underlying freedom here, free from clinging to a fixed idea of who we are, who we should be. Instead, the Lanka encourages us to embrace change, to welcome the new experience, and to evolve with each passing moment. Our aim is to realize the ultimate truth, or suchness, or tathagata, which is beyond words, images, and discriminations. Take, for example, a potter who applies such things as manual labor, water, a stick, a wheel, and a string to a lump of clay to make different kinds of vessels. The Tathagata is also like this, applying wisdom and a variety of skillful means to what he has no. The Tathagata is also like this, applying wisdom and a variety of skillful means to what has no self and is free from projections. Sometimes I speak about the Tathagata Garbha and sometimes no self. The Lanka also teaches us Buddha nature, Tathagata, as ultimate reality, which is beyond the realm or arising in cessation, thus beyond the limits of karma. We can realize Buddha nature and freedom from suffering by doing our practice, especially through meditation and insight. Letting go of attachments and recognizing the illusory nature of reality, we break free from the cycle of birth and death. This is how we transcend, by overcoming suffering and illusion. The Lanka accentuates the primacy of consciousness and the idea that all things are manifestations of the mind. This can be interpreted as a form of unity consciousness in the sense that multitude of experiences and perceived duality of self are ultimately united within the realm of the mind. The three realms of existence, sense, desire, form, and formlessness, are ultimate expressions of the mind itself. All perceived objects are perceptions of our consciousness, and there is no independent external world. The Lanka rejects the notion of duality. It states even seemingly contrasting concepts are ultimately aspects of the same thing. Jewel bright is the boundless sea, its surface churning with the waves of birth and death. The gate to the great tranquility dissolves the shapes of past and present, the forms of coming and going. We pray the darkness of our delusion may be illuminated by true compassion. We pray that we may realize the unborn. Thank you. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha.